Hello, good afternoon. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. Now, I have a good topic for you today. I am going to be talking about the sb1718. So, I have an update for you. It's not necessarily the kind of update that it's not great news, but I still feel like as we see things developing here, I want to make sure that you're aware of it. And I wouldn't say it's the worst news, but I want to keep you updated. And then I also found a great chart. So, through the organization that I'm a member of, it's called ILA, the American Immigration uh, Lawyers Association. They provide us sometimes about our practice area. And in this case, they provided a great sheet that tells us what we can do and what the law SB 1718, the Florida law, does do and what it doesn't do, so that you understand exactly how this law can affect you and how you can still move forward regardless of this law. So I'm going to share that with you. Now, I am on YouTube and I don't have the ability to share the chart here on Instagram, but I am going to share this chart on YouTube. So if you are subscribed to YouTube, go ahead and just go to YouTube and look for me. It's called Getting the Green Card. When you find me, Getting the Green Card is the name of the channel. You'll be able to see the live going on and you can look at the chart. But I'm going to read the chart out so you will get the same information here on Instagram that you're getting on Facebook, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. All right, so here's the update. So you know that there was a lawsuit, that there is a pending lawsuit to try to block Section 10 of SB 1718, and that's the part of the law that prohibits undocumented immigrants, certain undocumented immigrants who came into the country without permission, from being transported into the state. And transported into the state it's broadly defined. So there is so broad that it's vague, in that a relative could be driving an undocumented immigrant across the state, and they could face a felony for taking an immigrant who came into the country without permission. They could face a felony for transporting that undocumented immigrant. And so, this has struck a lot of fear in people. Because of that, there's a lot of misinformation, and it makes it very difficult for people to go about their daily lives. And it also even conflicts with immigration. So, for example, if you have an interview in Florida, but you live in Georgia or Alabama, it's going to be very hard for you risk facing a felony. Your spouse faces, or your relative who's taking you to the interview faces a risk of felony if they're driving you into the state of Florida and you came into the country without inspection. That means you came across the border, you snuck into the country, came across the border, came by boat, and you weren't inspected. So I'm going to go ahead and share a chart that helps you to understand, kind of dispel some of this misinformation, so that you don't have to live with so much fear. And if at all possible, you can move forward with your affairs. Now, the update I had was when they filed this lawsuit. I really think this is a winning lawsuit here, and I felt as if the injunction, so that there was a request to put a block on the law while this litigation is going forward. However, the court, so on August 10th, the court did deny the request to block the law. This injunction is like a temporary block. Ultimately, we want them to win the lawsuit, but what the attorneys were asking for was they were asking for the court to block the law until a final decision is made in the case. Now, the judge didn't say that it was based on the merits that this they were denying the injunction, the block. The judge was not denying it based on any merits, meaning did not necessarily side with one party or the other on this, but the judge stated that the other side, the attorneys on the opposing side, so the Florida government attorneys, did not get enough notice of this motion for an injunction to respond to this. And so the judge gave the attorneys on the side of the plaintiffs, so the immigrants, the immigrant organizations that are filing this lawsuit, the judge did give them the option to refile this this request for injunctive relief, meaning the block, and in the process just provide the other side sufficient notice to be able to reply. So it doesn't mean that this denial for the request to block the law is permanent, that it's a technicality. So it was sort of denied on a technicality, and they still have the opportunity to refile. So I'll keep you updated on the lawsuit as I become aware of those changes in the lawsuit as well. And hopefully they will refile and get this injunctive relief for, to block this law. Now, that also means that I think when you hear that there's no block on the law so far, I mean, ultimately we want them to win this lawsuit and just completely throw it out the door. But in the meantime, I know that hearing that makes a lot of people nervous, and it means that you have to continue to struggle with how can you survive, especially you're here in Florida. If you want to travel here, if your family's here, what do you do? And how far does this law go? Now, there are some misconceptions about this law, like you can't go to the hospital, that they're going to take your DNA. Once you're an immigrant, they're going to take your DNA, that you'll get arrested for living with your relatives are going to be arrested for just living with you because you may be out of status, or driving with you. And so I wanted to I think this chart does a good job of summarizing everything regarding the law, and what you're aware of and what you shouldn't necessarily have fears about. So I'm going to go ahead and share this, but on Instagram, I'm going to read this chart out to you so you understand exactly what's going on. So, all right. So if you see here on the chart, let's see if you see it. All right. So here on the chart, we have, and this is issued by ILA as well as Americans for Immigrant Justice, and it has what SB1718 will do and what SB1718 will not do. So let's go through it step by step so we can determine what the law does do and what it doesn't do. So if the first is community ID. So this was part of the law where it says that the local government, if the local government, they were not, so the government was not allowed to issue funding to any organization or any local government that can issue IDs, right? These are like local community IDs. So it says here what SB 1718 will do is it bars local governments from providing funding to issue community IDs to persons who do not prove lawful presence in the US. What it doesn't do is it doesn't invalidate community IDs that have already been issued by the local government. It doesn't prevent the issuance of community IDs if the government does not fund them, and it does not make it a crime. So you just by having one of these local IDs, you're not going to be charged with any kind of crime. Now, where you need to be concerned is if you have a false ID. Under Florida law, if you have a false ID and you're working with it, that can that does result in a felony under SB 1718. So, also here with the driver's license, that's a big concern for many immigrants who are here in Florida. And here's what the law does do. So the law invalidates the out of state driver's license that are issued without being required to show proof of lawful presence. So if you have an out of state driver's license and you can't show your proof, your status, your lawful current status, then it does make it a crime to be driving under these circumstances. So you would get cited. So the law does say that you would get cited. It doesn't result in a felony. It doesn't result in an arrest on the spot. Of course, if they continue to see that you're a repeat offender of this law, then that could definitely result in higher fines and possible jail time. But in this case, just by virtue of having a license, it is considered a violation of Florida law, and you would be cited under the law. Now, what it doesn't do is if you already have a Florida driver's license, even if you can't show your current status, but you do currently have a license for one reason or the other, then it does invalidate Florida driver's license. So only focusing on your out of state license, it's not focusing on the Florida driver's license. Also, if you're so, people are going out of state and they're getting the out of state driver's licenses because they want to be in compliance of the law and they don't want to necessarily be driving without any kind of driver's license at all. So it does not make it a crime just to have these, right? So you can have this, say you're coming to visit, but you don't plan to drive, and you have an out of state license. It will not be held against you to have an out of state driver's license if you're not driving. So having an out of state ID or driver's license is not going to be a crime if you're driving. So if you're driving, let me know if you can hear me. Now, if you're driving with that out of state license, then that can affect you. Just let me know if there's any sound. I just got interrupted, so I just want to know if there's any sound. Let me know if you're hearing me. All right. Okay, hospitals. So this is an important one. All right, I'm having some technical difficulties on Instagram, so I'm going to come out and all right. So it's having some technical difficulties. I'm here talking about what the SB 1718 does do versus what it does not do. We talked about the driver's license. We talked about the community IDs. Now I'm just talking now about hospitals. So many of you may be afraid to get medical care because of this law, because it's rumored that you won't be able to get care. You might be refused care, or no, they're going to be able to track you. No, that is false. And I want to let you know where this law does require some information from the hospitals, but why it won't individually affect you. So the law does require hospitals and emergency rooms that receive Medicaid to ask patients their immigration status. And I know that alone can be nerve wracking, but here's what the law doesn't do, and why you shouldn't be fearful to seek medical attention, even when they ask for your immigration status. Now, another tip is never ever claim US citizenship, because that's one of the worst violations you could do under immigration law. But what the law doesn't do is it doesn't allow doctors, clinics, hospitals, or any medical care providers to report undocumented or individual patients to immigration authorities. The law does not allow medical care providers to deny care on patients' immigration status. It does not permit or encourage immigration enforcement at hospitals or emergency departments. So you're not going to see ICE hanging out at the emergency room to grab anybody who a doctor identifies as undocumented. It does not require patients to answer questions about their immigration status to receive care at the hospitals that receive Medicaid. You will be asked the questions, but you don't have to answer it. So you don't have to lie. You answer that question. Responsibility of the hospital to provide the statistics based on but they're not, if you don't give it, they can't compel you to, and they can't deny you care for not answering that question. So the law also, it does penalize employers, not the employees, the employers for failing to verify employment authorization. And it criminalizes only the immigrants who use false identification documents to obtain the work. Now, if you are not using false identification, say you use your ITIN number as a contractor, say you provide the employer all your documents, your genuine documents, are not going to be criminally charged here. It's the employer's responsibility here. And the employer could face fines. The employer may be unwilling to hire undocumented immigrants, which can make life harder for undocumented immigrants because of this law, but it's not going to criminalize you as the immigrant. It's also going to require all employers to verify new employees' work authorization and require private employers who employ 25 or more employees to verify, e-verify, to confirm the employees' work, that they are authorized to work. What the law doesn't do is it doesn't require employers to recheck your employment authorization if they have already been employed through e-verify. And it does not authorize a state law enforcement to conduct employment verification audits until July 1st, 2024. So the state they're not doing the verifications right now. That's going to be next July 1st, 2024. Now, the felony charge regarding coming into the state. So it's the human smuggling part of this law that makes it a felony to transport into the state of Florida any person who they knowingly, or the person knowingly or reasonably should have known that this person entered into the country unlawfully, or they were not by the government. And it has to be, actually, it's you enter the country without permission and you have not been inspected at all by the federal government. So the law will charge somebody with a felony if they transported an individual into the state and they knew of this or should have known this fact. What it doesn't do is it doesn't criminalize or charge anybody with a felony who transports anybody within the state of Florida. If you're within the state of Florida, Uber driver, and you're driving people around, they're documented, you are not going to be charged with a felony. It does not criminalize you or anybody or your family members if you live with them, if they provide housing to you or share housing with you as an undocumented immigrant. And it will not be a risk to you if you're transporting your family members, your church members, if you're carpooling with other people within the state of Florida. That could be a potential problem if you're going from outside of Florida in Florida. And the immigrant who's being transported was not inspected and came across the border without permission. Now, it does expand Florida's ability to cooperate with other law enforcement agencies regarding immigration enforcement, but it does not give the state direct authority to detain or arrest individuals. Now, when it comes to DNA, they can collect DNA from individuals, yes, including children who have been issued a detainer by immigration authorities in state criminal custody. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't give the police or the state authority to detain anybody or to take their DNA from any immigrant, regardless of your immigration status. What I just listed here is a comprehensive summary of that law, what you can do versus what you shouldn't be too concerned about, what the law doesn't do. Take that into consideration, and I think this should be comforting to some individuals, because a lot of what you fear falls under the section of the chart that where the state has no authority. The state can't arrest you. The state can't deport you. The state is going to criminalize the immigrant for working here in the state, unless, of course, you use false documents to do that. And most immigrants don't do that. You can have an out-of-state license. You should just think twice about driving with it. And then Florida has also issued a list of states out-of-state driver's license that they invalidate, and I think it's 2 states right now: New York, Washington, New Jersey, Maryland, California. They are not listed on the states of invalid out-of-state driver's license. That, however, can change. That can change in the future, so we have to look out for that. But they started 5 states where they would not recognize the out-of-state driver's license, and they ended up taking 3 of those states off. So it just shows you that it's harder for even Florida to enforce this new law than they thought. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and answer questions very quickly before I head out. So put your questions in the comments. All right. Hi, Rita. Thanks so much. As having technical difficulties on Instagram. I'm from Jamaica and I'm coming there. So you can drive. If you're a tourist, you're coming here on your visa, you can drive with your international license. This is focused on immigrants who can't show their legal status here. Can I ask a few questions, please? I'm in New York. Give us a call. We represent clients in all 50 states. And you're always welcome. I'm going to keep you updated. I think this was valuable information that I found that was guidance all in one place. So I will post this to make sure that you can watch it again and understand what the law does and what it doesn't do. In a nutshell, hospital. You can live and drive with your relatives. You can move around with your relatives. It's not, the state can't deport you. The state can't arrest you. The state can't take DNA just because you may not have your papers here. Right? So just keep that in mind. I know it's important to have this information. So that because a part of this, what this law does is it does go to the heart of immigrants' fears, and it in response to that, a lot of immigrants then go away and go into the shadows, and they don't feel free to move around, and it even makes them vulnerable to human trafficking, which I represent a lot of clients who are trafficked because of the types of laws that embolden and empower traffickers to keep them fearful. So I want to empower you with this information so that you understand what you should be aware of and what you don't necessarily have to fear. And I want you to take your well being into consideration here still. Your well being is number one. So you go to the hospital. If you need help, call the police, because nothing in this law says that the police are there to enforce immigration laws. In the state police are not authorized to enforce immigration laws still, even with this law. All right. So I don't see any more questions. I will be back tomorrow. So just look out for me around lunchtime, and then I'll come with a topic and you can come with your questions. Tomorrow, I want to talk about, well, Trump just released and as you know, he's running, and he just released a long list of things that he will do to restrict immigration. I want to go over that with you because I feel it's important for you to know what could potentially be coming. He won before, and we cannot underestimate him. We can't underestimate the fact that he can win again. He did these things. He did travel bans. He banned countries like Nigeria, countries that were mainly Black, Brown, and Muslim. Those countries were banned, and he plans to do it again, but he plans to expand that to countries where there's a problem of overstaying. They're going to restrict, require bond for certain individuals who are coming in. They have to pay a bond of thousands of dollars to be able to even enter the country. Health and wealth checks again. So of course, the public charge rule will change with him. So you have to be aware of what's coming. So you can talk to your relatives. You can let them know how this law will impact you, so they understand that their vote counts. And if, of course, DeSantis does make it, we see where he is falling in the polls. Doesn't look good, but we never know. Still early. And in his case, he could bring a law like this in Florida nationally. So I'm going to go over some of the things that Trump has said he's going to do, and he has done it before. So it could get very miserable for immigrants, and we want to be aware of that so you can empower yourself now, or take whatever action you need to take to protect yourself and your interest. How long does it take for the NBC to schedule an interview at the embassy? So it could take at least a month to a year. I mean, it could take at least a month. The average time I'm seeing is up to a year to wait for that interview. Jamaicans here, how can I start paying for immigration process? Now, paying for the immigration process, you do have to pay the fees for immigration directly at one time. But if you're talking about my services, give our office a call. You're going to have to start the consultation to determine what you qualify for. The link in the email if you would like to schedule an appointment with me so we talk about your options. I am going to head out. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. I will be back tomorrow, and I will talk more about what could potentially be coming down the pipe so that you can start to explore how you can empower yourself and start to educate your family members about their role in preventing this catastrophe from happening. All right, thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.